Good evening again. We want to take this time to welcome you to the Liberian View. Um, we want to also just apologize. Last week we had a little technical assistance, so this program actually is a repeat. And the fact that we know that this particular topic is very, very important, um, we decided to have a repeat so that we know that we have a lot of women all over the world that would like to know know the impact and the role of women when it comes to electoral processes. We have 2 more minutes. We're going to be joining you with our panelists. We know that a few of our panelists are running late, and we'll get back to you all very soon. Okay, we want to take this time to say um, good afternoon to all. Um, um, Dorina, do you want to put some light on?
One second. Okay, light is on.
Okay, I just want to make sure that. Okay, so we want to take this time to welcome you all to the Liberian View. I want to say that this is a repeat. This particular discussion was held in the month of May, but due to technical assistance, we couldn't air. And so the fact that we know that this topic is so important, we decided to have a repeat, and I know that you won't have any regret. Today, I want to really, really elaborate and also leave you with some food of thoughts that the role and impact of women in any electoral processes are very, very important. Women play different roles, and those roles benefit the world at large. And so today, we have 4 speakers. Others will be running a little late because of other duties that they have to perform. However, we stated that we're going to start at 4:30, and indeed 4:30 we are starting because we know that some of you will take up your time and be here at 4:30 or sign on 4:30 just to watch and learn. And from your questions, we will also learn and make sure that we do a better job next time. So I would like to first of all just give uh, you our first speaker on the panel, Ms. Dorina White. She will say a little bit about herself, and then the floor will be hers to let you know what are the roles and the impact, the benefits, who the role that women play when it comes to electoral processes, not only restricted to the continent of Africa, but the world at large. So, Dorina White, the floor is yours, and thank you for coming.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure again. My name is Dorinda White, and I live here in Washington, D.C., not far from the U.S. Capitol, and right between the U.S. Capitol and the White House, actually. And I am an elected official here in Washington, D.C. I'm a Ward 6 committee woman. Washington, D.C. is divided into eight wards, and I'm the committee woman for the Ward 6 Democrats, and I'm actually also the first vice president of the Ward 6 Democrats. So I'm a member of the Democratic State Party here in Washington, D.C. Um, Lucy invited me here today because I have experience both running for office and helping others to get elected. And in my role right now, I am on the executive board of the National Federation of Democratic Women, where I serve as an executive board member, but I'm also the treasurer of the organization. So I have quite a few years of experience as both helping people to run, women to run for office, and running for office myself. So I'm very glad to be here today to share some insights on the importance of women and their role in the electoral processes. Do you want me to continue?
Yes, Dorina, you can continue.
Okay.
Thank you for that introduction. This is not
Okay.
Dorina's first time on this particular platform, and today we just going to give her the time for for us all to learn and from this discussion today, especially for African countries and other countries in the world that are having election. And sometimes we, the women, we feel that we don't have a role to play due to some cultural, historical aspect of life, perspective. And so Dorina will elaborate on some of these. And Dorina, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, today I'm going to focus on the role and impact of women. Um, can you see me? Because I keep seeing myself go in and out in the electoral processes here in the United States. So,
Can you, Dorina, can you lighten your,
yeah. Okay. Hold on. Let's see if I can change my. Is that
yeah,
better? Is that better?
a little more?
Whoops. Okay.
Uh,
Is that better?
yeah,
Better?
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay. So, women have been participating in the electoral processes in the United States for centuries. In 1776, Abigail Adams wrote to her husband, John Adams, who was one of the presidents of the United States, urging him to remember the ladies when drafting the Declaration of Independence. Adams was concerned that the new government would not protect the rights of women. So in 1848, the first Women's Rights Convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York. And the convention basically adopted the Declaration of Sentiments, which called for equal rights for women, including the right to vote. So in 1920, the 19th Amendment to the United States was ratified, giving women the right to vote. This was a major victory for women's suffrages movement. And since the ratification of the 19th Amendment, women have made significant progress in the electoral politics. So
Mhm.
in 1992, more women than ever before ran for and won elected office. And in 2008, Hillary Clinton, became the first woman to be nominated for president by a major political party. So today, women make up 25% of the members of the United States Congress and 24% of the state legislators. They also hold a high number of high level positions in federal government, including cabinet secretaries and Supreme Court justices. So, women's participation in electoral processes has had a significant impact here in the United States. Women have brought new perspectives to the political process and helped to advance issues that are important to women and their families, such as education, healthcare, and childcare. Women's participation in the electoral processes is essential for ensuring that the voices of all citizens are heard. By working together, we can continue to make progress towards a more inclusive and representative democracy. Let me share with you for a moment some of the challenges that women still face in the electoral processes in the United States. And I'm certain that they're probably the same all over the world. So, number one is lack of access to resources. Women are more often, they have less access to men to the resources they need to run for office, such as money, campaign staff, and the most important thing, childcare. Violence and intimidation. Women who participate in politics are often subjected to violence and intimidation. And cultural and religious discrimination. Women may face cultural and religious barriers to participation in politics. So, here are some of the strategies that can be used to overcome these challenges. So, provide women with access to resources. This can be done through government programs, private foundations, and nonprofit organizations. They can address violence and intimidation. This can be done through legislation, education, and public awareness programs. And promote cultural and religious tolerance. This can be done through education and dialogue. So, by working together, we can overcome the challenges facing women in electoral processes and ensure that all citizens in whatever country they are in have the opportunity to participate fully in the political process. And that's all I have to share. You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you so much, Dorina, and thank you for letting me know that I'm muted.
No.
Um, I just want to thank you for that presentation. I just want to, I think I was checking the chat to see whether we have questions. And one of the questions in the chat was, how does the participation of women in electoral processes contribute to the overall representation and diversity of elected officials?
Well, what I can tell you is also from personal experience and from training other women and going through many campaign training programs is that our presence there at the table makes certain that those who are also at the table address issues that affect our daily lives. As many of you know, around the world, no matter where you are, if you are a woman and you have a family, if you're a woman by yourself, or if you're a woman who is part of a larger family unit, many times our voices are clouded over by others who claim to represent us, but they really don't know our true everyday situations, raising children, working full time, or whether we stay at home and raise kids, or if we go out into the world to work. There are different things that we face on a daily basis that are, it could be discrimination against us because we're women. It could be lower salaries. It could be access to hygiene products. It could be, there's a whole host of things that normally men who are sitting at the table and who are involved in political processes, they don't think about that. It's by having us involved and having us being represented as women, our voices can be heard, and we can also be part of the conversation as it takes place. If we're not there, they will consider everything else except what's important to us. So it's vitally important that we have a seat at the table and that we are part of the discussion, both at the federal, at the local, at the state, even uh, in local politics. They say that all politics is local, and it's true because when you have someone even locally who is the local sheriff, or they are the local councilwoman, or they are the local, I don't know, whatever local political positions that are open, they have an impact on your daily life where you live. And as they move up the chain to become, if they're elected to other positions at a higher level, they will take with them the experience they had at the local level, and they'll be able to speak for you because they've experienced it too at the local level. I can say in my instance here, being the elected, I've been elected in this position since 2014 when I was elected citywide to become a Ward 6 committee woman, and I served in the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, for 30 days as a temporary rules member. But each time I held those positions, I was able to learn something that I didn't know, interact with people who were already in that arena, and build relationships and friendships and professional relationships so that as I move forward into whatever my next steps might be, I already have, I'm armed. I guess I'd call myself armed and dangerous because I have had access to information that others don't have or may not have thought to have access to. But when I do speak, or if someone calls me and says, "Hey, what do you think about this issue? How do you think we should approach it? Or do you think we should have this issue front and center? Can you give us your thoughts on how we should approach it?" I can speak to it from my thing keeps going out. I can speak to it from being both a woman and being in the political arena, and having, as I said earlier, done training at the Women's Campaign School at Yale, at the Congressional Black Caucus Boot Camp, and I went back to teach there. Emily's List, Supermajority. I've done a lot of different. I've taken a lot of different approaches to what I've been able to garner, and then I put them into play so that as a woman, when I sit at the table and I speak on behalf of the community that I serve, which in in Washington D.C., Ward 6 is we are part of the 720,000 people who exist here. But I can speak from the standpoint of, yes, I know that there's opioid substance use going on in Ward 6, or that there's several low income housing projects here that need to be addressed. I can speak to the fact that many of our residents here, although many of them work on Capitol Hill, there's a transient population here in Ward 6. So it's important also that we educate the people here locally that they need to vote and their voice counts. So the fact that I've been exposed to all these different inputs, I'd say, from different ways that I've gotten trained or have trained others, I can be a worthwhile representative. And I'm aware of the electoral process. And more importantly, I've made it a point in each of my roles. I served as the president of the DC Federation of Democratic Women before I became the treasurer of the National Federation. And in my role for 2 years, this was during the pandemic, I was able to pull in younger women to be a part of the conversation, to help me with some of the programs and processes that I was putting into place so that they could learn the importance of being politically active and having a voice in their communities. So I would say that although many times we think, when we're thinking of women in the electoral processes, it all starts locally, in where you live, talking to other women where you live to find out what are the issues that are affecting our community. Are the schools treating our kids right? Are they getting their meals correctly? Are they being taught the right topics? Because we know that women are the ones who share the information that goes down to the next generation. Although men do too, but women are the ones who prepare children for the future. And I think, and even in that instance, with getting involved in electoral processes, no matter where you are in the world, you should start locally and learn at a local level, and then prepare to take the steps to other levels. But meanwhile, bring other women with you.
Thank you so much, Dorina. I know we have our another panelist that just joined us again. We have Lady Kate. I know Lady Kate. This is not she's not new. We want to take this time to say welcome. Lady Kate is
Thank you.
not new to this platform. She's part of this team, and so we say welcome. And Lady Kate was somewhere with Miss Africa, carrying out some other activities, interview and meet and greet, a lot of different activities. But she saw the need that this is important because the role of women in electoral processes is important more than ever before in the world of women as we exist, and it's so important that we need to talk about it, because sometimes you don't know your role. Sometimes we have impact, but we don't even see it. We don't know it. We don't understand it because sometimes of cultural values and sometimes fear. Sometimes we feel that certain male, even though some male may treat us very nice, but some may be very chauvinistic, and that fear, the women carry on. But through this discussion, we are hoping that our goal is that you should know that you have a role to play. You gave birth to all humans on earth. You play your role. You know them. You know them so well, but sometimes we sit at the back and wonder whether we have a voice. So we are hoping that this discussion will give you some voice, and you will be able to look and see, as Dorina rightly stated, see what is lacking. For instance, I will, before I call on or maybe ask another question, Lady Kate, to speak, There are a lot of things happening in Africa. I can say for my country, Liberia, and election is going to be in the month of October, and we are hoping that the marketing women, because unlike the United States where Dorinda is from, there's structure, there's a room, there's more improvement, advancement when it comes to women participation, unlike, for instance, in Africa. So this particular discussion, I'm hoping that African women who are here or those who are listening in to other countries that will be having election know that you have a role. We have our culture, we respect our men, but our culture does not confine you not to participate. So we hope that this will be helpful for those that are in the countries that are not well structured as the United States or the Western world. And so, having said that, I will just ask Dorina one question, because you have a list of experiences in different uh, um, uh, leadership and elected official schools you've attended. What are some of the strategies that you think for countries like Africa, especially those are in the process of having election, not this year, some are next year, some are 2, 3 years from now? What are some of the strategies you think that women organization, not only in Africa but within the diaspora, what are some of the strategies that we can employ to increase the turnout of women and also especially women engagement?
You're muted. You're muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. What I would say is, once again, starting from the grassroots levels, there are already women out there who are connected and know what's going on out there. They just have not come together. Women have more of a gift, from a social standpoint, of coming together, communicating, talking, nurturing each other, sharing their stories with each other, because we all have common origins as women and they're very unique. And I think the first step would be, as I said earlier, and I didn't actually use these words, but most women know how to do the research and find a need and fill it. There's a need out there. They know what's needed and what needs to be done because they've raised families. They've been parts of families. They know a lot more. I hate to say this, we know a lot more than men know, just because of our daily interactions with both our families and being parts of, being a small part of a larger group. But we have strong influence just because we are women. I would say communication. Women should come together, on a grassroots level. They can have conversations. They can form clubs, or they can create partnerships between clubs and organizations and say, hey, I know you have this group, you have this group. Let's form a council of these women's groups and let's talk and let's decide and come up with some issues uh, or needs that are very important for our community. First of all, communication and coming together. Second is being strategic about it. We have the ears of the men who make decisions, whether it's pillow talk, whether it's over dinner, whether it's, talking about their children's lives or family members. We have their ears. So we know the times to sit down and talk to the men in our families. We know strategically when to choose those times, when to sit down with them, and when to say, hey, this is something that's important to women in our community. And I'd like to let you know why it's so important. And I'd like to know what you think about it. And if you can be a voice for us too. So that would mean also bringing in men into the conversation because it impacts them too. If they're happy, is to say a happy wife is a happy life.
Mm-hmm.
So if we use the power that we have to influence those who are around us to help to change their mindsets, I think that's another strategy too. Third, I would say to look around and find the resources. Find out if there's international humanitarian organizations or whatever that have money and funding to help women run for elected office. When I was doing the Emily's List Political Opportunity Program, there were two of my classmates who were from Kenya, and they were running for Senate in Kenya. But they were here in the United States to do training in my cohort to learn the ins and outs of campaign finance, how to raise money, where to find it, how to have a political conversation, how to put together a campaign, all the elements of that. And they were my classmates. and one went on to win in Kenya. The same happened when I was doing the women's campaign school at Yale. Another woman, um, Kawala, I think from Cameroon, from Yaoundé. She was one of my classmates. Well, she was graduated a year before us, but she came back to speak to me, to our class, and she was positioning herself to run for president of Cameroon. So and we all coalesced around her and offered to help her any way we could. And that's what happened with the two ladies who were also senators from who were running for Senate in Kenya. So it's creating that cohesive group so that when that one person or two people or three people step forward and say, I'm going to go out to become a voice, we have to be a team and walk with them. When they walk in the room, they people have to imagine this whole slew of women walking in with them. It's a visual. And a fourth one would be the importance of using the media to let people and the world know that this is where you as a woman are going if you plan to run, or your group if you're planning to position your group to support a woman. You have to let others know, out of sight, out of mind. And it's important that you spread the information as widely as possible. And once again, engage the men in the conversation so that they are also saying, hey, you know, so and so is running for office and we think she'd be a great candidate and we want you to support her. So support comes in many different forms. And last but not least, if there is some sort of intimidation or someone saying, hey, who do you think you are? Why do you think you should go out there and run? Well, without women birthing these men and other women birthing people, they wouldn't be here. We are the source of life. I think the conversation needs to go back to, would you say this to your mother? Would you say this to your sister or to your aunt? You want your people, your families, your community to move forward and progress. And why not engage in helping them to move forward? I would say again, if intimidation comes into play, a conversation or a group of women coming together and having a conversation with whoever's trying to intimidate them to basically help to change how they perceive that we are not a threat. We are here to help, and we're helped to grow. We're here to help communities and countries grow, not to deter their growth.
Thank you so much, Dorinda. I will now let for Lady Kate to introduce herself. But in that process, I would like for you, Lady Kate, because while you're here, there's some questions that I'm getting. So I would just add that to your introduction and your presentation. One of the questions where I did know that Dorinda have well, laid the foundation, especially when it comes to a Western world. I know there are a lot of challenges here also and but challenges they're different from our challenges, especially in the continent of Africa. And I was just wondering, and someone was just saying that what are the barriers that hinder women in that area when it comes to full participation? How can that be addressed? So, Lady Kate, if you introduce yourself, and through your discussion, we're hoping that you'll be able to answer some of those questions, the barriers, and how can it be addressed from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I am Lady Kate. Ms. Wilson said, I am not new to the platform, and I'm very honored to be invited and to be on the same platform as Dorina. Obviously, you have a lot of experience in the world of politics, so thank you. And again, for mentioning the great uh, political leaders that you mentioned that you trained with. Kawala from Cameroon, very phenomenal woman who ran for president. So that was great. Yeah, I'm a healthcare professional. And I'm also very involved in our community on the grassroots level, the African community. I'm the founder of Miss Africa USA. So I work to empower young girls in the US to, build their self-esteem and also chase their own dreams as leaders. So we produce leaders. We groom young leaders, young women leaders here in the United States from the immigrant community. And I'm also glad to say some of them actually, voice that desire to run for office in the US, right? So I am also the founder of Great Women Network, which is a network of African and Africa diaspora women, um, trying to support each other. We have several members who are elected officials, and we, just like you said, form a team, support whoever says, "Hey, I'm here and I'm running for office." We are behind you as sisters, right? So it's a great network. We're based here in Maryland, in the great state of Maryland, and the network is between women in the DMV area. So that's just me in a nutshell. I am, a very busy healthcare professional. I am running a couple of programs in DC and Northern Virginia, in the field of healthcare. But I do enjoy my community work, in empowering women, ensuring that we amplify the voices of women wherever we are, and kind of elevate and uplift women in different efforts, business, you name it, politics. We're there. So thank you. I know you threw a question to me about some of the barriers. Um, yeah, so I will speak on women from, because I'm an immigrant woman. I've lived in the United States for, since 2000. And also because I'm in the grassroots of the immigrant community, we are also integrating into the American society, right? Because we are Americans. So um, on one level, we are strongly encouraging our women to get into the space of politics locally. Here in Prince George's County, for example, for the first time, we've made history with an African immigrant um, in the council. We supported her and she won. And so we see that this is going to be a growing effort, right? So we have the opportunity. We got to step up and run. So some of the barriers may include cultural barriers for the immigrant woman, not seeing herself in that role, right? So we are raised as, uh, uh, mothers, family and stuff. So we don't talk about one day being the president of the United States. It just seems like a far-fetched dream, but living here, we see that it's possible, right? Very possible. And so, as far as in Africa, again, things are really compounded by the culture. There are structural discriminatory laws that prevent women from advancing or sitting at the table. But I must say there is good news, though, with the growth of education. There's a growth in education, and women and girls are getting more and more educated. So the mentality is changing, society is also changing, right? So we have, for example, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, which publishes and tracks women's participation in parliaments globally, is reporting that there is a growth in women's participation in parliament. For example, in 2019, it reported a 20% increase globally, right? Some countries are way more advanced than others, but it's saying it's a slow growth. It's trickling, it's coming. Now, if you look at Africa, we have also a growing number of women ministers. For example, I can tell you a country like Rwanda has 51% women ministers. That's women in office, elected office, serving as ministers in their countries. You have South Africa with 48.6%. Ethiopia, which once never had women, represented, it's gone up to like 47.6. So I can tell you, with the advance of education, more women going into attaining higher educational levels and supporting other women, it's leading to this kind of success. But again, a lot of African countries fall way behind. I've told you the statistics of 3 or 4 countries. Africa has 54 countries. Most of them are still way, way behind, right? So um, again, the opportunities are not there, or women are not encouraged. But you will see behind successful male politicians, guess who's running the show? It's the women, right? Women are involved in campaigns. They will do the legwork. They will get into the grassroots. For example, I can tell you about my own mother, who was really in the grassroots and backing these men to run. But if you see that they put so much effort in, but if you say, "Oh, you can run for this office," culturally there's a barrier that says, "Oh, it's the men." Who have to go, right? It's not written anywhere, but it's just like perception, that cultural perception that it's not for you, it's for the men. So it's going to take a lot of education for us women, to ensure that we bring more women to the table, because having women at the table leads to more inclusive decision making, right? Because you don't want a bunch of men making decisions about women. We want to be at the table and speak for ourselves, like this is what works for us, right? So it's a lot of work to be done. Even here in the United States, we are encouraging more women to step up, right, and run for office. It's still a challenge here too. We are yet to see a female president of the United States, but I think it's not far fetched, right? It's coming. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lady Kate.
Mhm.
Just quickly, do you think the role of advocacy and the rights of women, does it tie into women participation in electoral processes?
I definitely think so. We have issues of like gender violence, which is very rampant in our communities. Um, you know, in order for us to achieve parity, we really have to face some of the challenges that are stopping women from advancing in society. Gender violence is one of them. Violence against women and girls is huge. That's something that can really be a major barrier for women. But again, education and putting in laws that we enforce to protect the rights of women, I think will continue to go a long way to get us there. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know that from what I gathered
Hmm.
from Dorina yourself, you talked about the role of women, and sometimes uh, there's some fear in a woman, whether they're sufficient, whether they're complete, whether they're able. And I know from my experiences that fear and incompleteness does not really always come from the male, because sometimes uh, I think we women have a role to play amongst ourselves, uh, trying to, like I think you both rightly stated, empower one another, encourage one another. Because if I'm encouraged in my little group that I'm in, uh, like the Greater Women for Networking, and I like if I come up and I want to contest in a particular position, or someone a woman or male tells me, "Oh, Lucy, I think you're qualified to do this." And sometimes when you go to, for example, to another lady and tell them that, "Oh, I was, just I went to this meeting and this guy walked up to me, the president of this particular organization, asked me, told me that, you can do this." And sometimes when you go over to tell your own group, I think that we should create that space to tell someone that you can do this. And if you think that they are not sufficient. There's a better way of doing it. Like Dorina listed, the Emily School, the Yale School of Leadership, all those institutions. Those resources should be available. Do you think we are doing it well in the African setting? Both, any one of you can answer that question.
I think that the African setting here in the United States, the way we are structured, we have a very good foundation where women can really bounce off of, but we're not taking advantage of it. For example, we are set up as, cultural groups. We have lots of women's group. What is lacking is the fact that, for example, you come up and say, I want to run for this office. What you're saying is you may not get that encouragement from that group. They'll be thinking, who the hell you think you are? Or do you think you can go there? American politics and stuff like that. So you might get a lot of discouragement, but we need to elevate the game. Like we need to use those groups, those structural organized groups to actually have a safe space, provide a safe space where women can come and get that support that they need. Again, being informed about the resources that are there in the community. For example, myself, people have approached me, hey, can you run for, we want to, rally behind you to run for this and that. And I'm like, I know for myself that there's some training that's needed. You just can't go in there blindly. You've got to be prepared. And so, society, our community has these resources, right, that you could tap into, make sure you're trained, and make sure that you kind of really understand what you're going into. So sometimes when they express that fear or doubt, it's because there's so much involved. But I believe that we can encourage when we see that talent. We can encourage, we can share resources and be able to direct women. Here is where you go for this, and we are behind you. I think that's what we really need. As far as Africa, I'm not too well versed with how things are done, to prepare women to run for office. So I can't really speak much on that, but I see that with education, with more and more women advancing in education, there is that empowerment that's pushing women to take leadership roles and get involved in politics. For example, a good friend of mine, she's my classmate. We went to school together. She's now serving as a parliamentarian in the Cameroon government. That was well celebrated. We really encourage her within our class group, and we stand behind her, right? So there is opportunity. We as women just need to be able to lift each other up, encourage, and provide a safe space where women can come and say, hey, I'm interested in this. We say, we hear you. Here's resources. Here's where I think, this will help, that will help. And we rally behind you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I
Mhm.
know that the structure in Africa, we're not like well versed into speaking to it. Not, for instance, a woman contesting as as in the Senate or Congress. But I know that there are different roles that women, and I think Dorina alluded to it in her presentation. A woman can volunteer to learn about the processes. A woman can, she's also a voter. So, uh, how can we encourage? Because sometimes someone could say, okay, I'm not even voting. But if you're not voting, you're electing someone that is keeping
Mhm.
you down. So, as a woman, you have a home, you have children, or you have nephews, nieces, and whatnot. So, those are some of the roles I think in the continent that we think. Well, I mean that we all on this platform know that we can play. We can
Mhm.
volunteer. We can vote. We can encourage others to vote. So, how can what can you say? Dorina, to someone in the continent, especially for instance, right now I think we have countries that are having election. Nigeria's election just they just concluded on that. Other countries are having it. Liberia will be having the election in the month of October this year. I'm thinking, what do you think you can say to the women there? Well, I mean, we know that not all women are in the position to have gone to some leadership seminar or some leadership discipline attended and were educated to, or especially when it comes to running for offices. But at least they can be, they are voters, they are people, individuals that can influence someone. Because if you have a country that you don't have a job, you don't have a structured healthcare system, um, maybe your kids are not even going to school, school closed because of some political reason. How can we speak to those group of women there, seeing their children not going to school, seeing that uh, maybe they're not even being paid after a month of work, or there's nothing going on? How can we encourage those women to know that their vote count?
Well, what I would say is what I mentioned earlier, is if you're and I'll use it in another context. If you're out of sight, you're out of mind, and if you don't know what's going on, you'll be left behind. So there is always someone in any given community or any given family unit that is aware of what's going on. You just have to find that person. You could be a large family unit living in a compound, and that you're like, what do I do? Where do I go? What's happening next? There's someone who knows, whether it's a male or a female. They know what's going on and they stay connected. Find a mentor or someone who has that information and pick their brains and find out what's going on. You may be one person going to that person, and no one else has gone to that person to ask them, what's going on in the election process? Where do I go? What should I know? Who are the candidates? I find even here in the United States, whenever elections are going on here in Washington, D.C., for example, and we're supposed to be so advanced and so informed, I'm the one who gets the phone calls that says, Dorinda, who should I vote for? And I always tell them, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I can tell you who the candidates are, what they stand for, what their platform is, how they have been interacting in the community, what they have shared with the public. I can share that with you, but it's going to be up to you in the end to take that information and then decide where and how you're going to vote. Now, going back to the power of the vote, if you are a woman who lives in a village, for example, and you're stay at home, you don't go to work, but you do work in the village to make certain that you maintain your family, for example, and you have children, you have a husband, you live in a concentrated area, there is someone in that community who is connected. They may have that one cell phone and they keep abreast of the news. They may have that one television that they keep abreast of what's going on. Find out who that person is and connect with them, whether you have to go through your brother, your father, your uncle, and find out. They know, they sit around and talk and find out who that person is and ask, well, what's going on? I'm looking for a mentor. It could be male or female. I'm looking for a mentor. A mentor will feed you information and help you to grow, help your mind to grow. And if they're of the mentor quality, they will plant the seeds in you that of knowledge that you don't know. In another way to approach this too is oftentimes when children are in school and they come home, they are informed. Hey, mom, guess what I heard in school today? So and so is there's going to be an election, and so is running for blah blah blah. And those are little nuggets of information that you can take, and then you can find out more. Because oftentimes, if you're sequestered in a home environment and you don't have access to other people, it's what's brought home that you have access to. So I would say, even for those who don't have access to training programs, they don't have access to structured ways of getting information, you on an ongoing basis have always had information flow to you from different sources. Tap those sources. There's someone who knows. And the power of the vote. You may say, well, if I have to walk 20 miles to go and vote, I don't really feel like voting, or I don't think it's important that I vote. Well, if you don't vote, what you don't know, probably in some of the African countries, is that someone may be voting for you. That's one thing, because of the structures, that the way they're structured, someone may be going to the polls and saying, "Hey, I'm Jane Doe, and I'm voting for Jane Doe." And they may go to other ones and continuously do that, and you don't have a voice. It's important to vote at all times so that you have a voice, whether you're voting for the hot candidate who everybody wants to vote for, or you don't like them. It's important to go and at least exercise that right, that power. It's a little bit of power for a moment, no matter where it goes, no matter where it lands, for that woman who goes and casts that vote. If she has low self-esteem, she has no access to other things, she has no access to community, blah, blah, blah. She has power for a moment that she's cast a vote for someone, and it has to count for something. And guess what? Children and families watch. And I can say from my own personal experience growing up in Brooklyn, New York, I went and volunteered as a little girl on Shirley Chisholm's campaign. So Shirley Chisholm was the first Black woman to run for president in the United States. And I worked on her campaign as a little girl. And as I moved forward in life, I developed or had access to various female mentors who mentored me along the way, whether they did it outright and said, "Dorinda, you should know this, you should know that," or if I just watched them. And you watch them in action, and you pick up the little nuggets of the pearls of wisdom that you can use, and use your gift of discernment as to what's important for what you may want to do. Some of my mentors were C. Dolores Tucker, who was the first Black Secretary of State of the state of Pennsylvania. I became her right-hand person and gave speeches for her around the country and developed her chapters around the country. Nadine Winter here, who was one of the first Black elected councilwomen, she was my mentor. I could go down the list of women who poured into me that is allowing me today to pour into other women. So I say again, create that network. And if you're in, like I said, you're living in a village and you have no direct contact with continuous information, someone does.
Thank you so much, Dorinda. I really like the portion, the area where you stated, uh, if someone is contesting and you're a candidate, and you are creating an awareness, you're going to tell the person what this particular individual is stands for. So it's very, very important that women, especially in other countries, that elections are going to be taking place. And I would like to emphasize on Liberia for the October election, you need to know what an individual presidential candidate stand for. Like in Sierra Leone, they're going to be having the election in June. You need to know what this particular presidential candidate stand for. Is it someone that stand for health, for education, for water, for electricity, the basic needs of life? Is it someone that is going to pay your dad or your mom at the end of the month? What do they stand for? Do they stand for the values of life, the basic necessities of life? Are they going to be able to provide that? What morally are they more what is the morally, what do they stand for? Those are some of the things you need to be looking at, not voting based on tribe or from someone coming from the same church. Vote for your country is important. What does this person stand for? So I think if you're watching this particular program, you're gonna would love for you to take away that if you're a woman, that you know that you're important, that you know you should research, look around you, what is lacking in your community, in your little village where you are, what is lacking? Do you have water? Do you have a little clinic there that when you're sick, or your child or grandchild is sick, can they have that nurse or that doctor to assist them? How long do you have to drive to go to a clinic? Those are the needs around your villages, your little clans, your little towns, that you need to see and see whether the person that comes to you and give the longest speech, are they going to meet your need? That's the people or the individual we need to start voting for, not based on that. So I'm hoping that we all will listen and learn from this particular discussion, that even when you're running for office, you need to go back and be educated, because they have different schools. We're glad that they have a lot of basic education, leadership education online. You don't have to travel to the States to learn. You can go online, you register. And there are a lot of resources available. And we're hoping that at the end of this particular discussion, we'll be having some resources that we will put in the chat or send on the Librarian View website, so that you can go there and get it. And if you want to contact any of these ladies online on this platform, just contact the Librarian View at gmail.com, and we'll be able to make sure to send the information, and you can get in contact with them, or they will provide the resources and we can send it to you. But having said that, we're going to go quickly to our Ambassador Gillett, who just joined us, to just say a few words, and then we'll go around our platform, and we'll have a little summary of what we think our audiences would take away from this discussion. Gillett, the floor is yours.
Hello, and thank you for having us, Lucy, on the Liberian View. I want to greet my fellow panelists, is that Lady Kate and Mr. Rinda White. It's so good to be on the same panel with all of you. So thank you for having me, and definitely the topic at hand is in place, because not just Liberia and Sierra Leone, but the United States and multiple African countries have elections this year. So it puts a lot. It puts basically almost the whole world at a state of imbalance. Imbalance moving forward. Imbalance, not knowing what kind of leader everybody's going to have, not knowing what direction each country will take. As relates to the role of women in the electoral process, that is so important, because when we look at the leaders and you look at the first ladies now, look at the roles they're playing, it sends a direct message to the impact of the woman in the electoral process. The leaders, Lucy, Lady Kate did talk about what they have in mind and how others have empowered her to where she is. And when God gives you a purpose, he sends those people to empower you to get to that goal, the goal of your purpose. But most importantly, with the role of women, we want to look at leaders who understand where women come from. We have multiple very sensitive issues that come up all over the world globally: abortion rights, women rights as relates to the number of representation in government or political realms. Also looking at the grassroots women, what leaders will actually impact and empower the grassroots women. That's key when you look at agriculture and how they can, apply agriculture to the economic development of their countries, not just economic development of their countries, but empowering those women to do so, because we from Africa are coming from environments and cultures that don't necessarily or have not necessarily empowered the woman over the years. And you still have a lot of grassroots women who need that empowerment. So what are some of these leaders? What are the policies they are proposing for the grassroots women? That's one of the things we want to look at. What are their policies they're proposing for agriculture? And do they understand what it means to be raped? Do they understand the emotions? Have they had a track record or history of being a part of that voice that says no to rape for women? These are some of the sensitive issues we want to look at. Is that leader going to stand by you when it comes to women's rights in parliament, representation, in ministerial positions? You and I would have daughters in the future that want to aspire to be better than even us. Who are the leaders we are picking, and who are their first ladies by their side? How vocal, how strong would that first lady be to support her husband in achieving those goals for women? Let's take a look at the people who are standing in office. How have they empowered their wives? That alone will show you, are their wives lawyers? Are their wives vocal? Are their wives great women who are just supportive of what their husbands are doing? And are they by their sides? Are they ready to to give them the right word in their ears towards women rights. The role of the women, not just in a home but globally, is so important. When you educate and empower a woman, you educate and empower a nation. And just a typical example, when you're doing events, you see women well organized, meticulous, carrying things out. They are the strong, they are the backbones of society, they're the backbones of homes. You know, you have a house, you have a home, all those kind of things. But let's look at the role of women and that leader who in the future is gonna seek the interest of women towards building that nation and empowering more girl children to become leaders. So that's what I would like to say for now. Thank you. Oh, we can't hear you. You're on mute. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, Gila. That was so profound, and I think you, the three ladies, have really done a great job in just really providing awareness. If you had a closed mind, I know that this discussion will be able to help you open your mind to know that you're sufficient. You can do anything, and it tells you vote for your country, vote for your children. And I think it's very important that for the world to know that we play a lot of roles as women. And like you stated, Gillette, being a president's wife, you have to play that role and be an example, spotlight out there for all the women. And what you do tells a lot on the women that you are leading. So that is so important. We're hoping that this particular discussion will enlighten all women all over the world, and to know that you have a role, not only like a candidate, or you're a voter, you're an influencer, you're an advocate. Your participation will really lead to different policies changes, and the rights of women will be paramount. Having said that, we'll go around the, the platform to just state what do you think those who will be listening, or who are listening now and asking questions, and those who will be listening later on, what do you think they should take away from the discussion? We'll start first with, I think we'll start with Lady Kate.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been wonderful participating in this discussion. And I think that something to take away coming from me will be really encouraging our women, because I think that we have a well structured foundation, the way we're organized in society, both back home in Africa and here in the United States. We thrive in our cultural groups, women's groups, but let's elevate that. Let's be able to educate ourselves, especially here in the United States where we are. Voter education is huge. We can no longer stand away as immigrant women and not participate in the electoral process. So, if we're taking anything out of here today from this discussion, we have to change the mindset. We as women have a lot of power. We may not realize as we engage with our families, we sit at the dinner table and have discussions with our family, our children. Voter education is very powerful. We see what's going on in society today. You cannot let your vote go. Vote, vote, encourage your family members to vote. This year, my kids, my daughter turned 18.
Oh,
We
wow.
were at the polls. I made sure my children participate in the electoral process because every vote counts. It really makes a big difference. Sometimes that winner is only winning with 10 votes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So every vote really matters. So as an immigrant community here in the United States, the African community has grown tremendously. We have a power within us, given to us. We've earned it as American citizens. We must exercise the right to vote. We can no longer stand behind. And I think that women are well placed as you know, we organize our societies, our communities. We are, you know, bringing up, raising our families. We have a voice. We're the mothers. They will listen to us. Let's talk about this. Let's make sure our women, our families, our friends are going out there to vote. Secondly, I did mention voter education.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take it to these meetings that we go to, because you'll be amazed how many people don't even know what's going on, don't even know there's an election in their, county or, state or even presidential. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think it was great. It's always great having you, Lady Kate. And we are a team, and we uplift one another. We empower one another. And I'm so appreciative that the fact that I know you, and I can say it that I know you. Um, so I think we will ask Ambassador Gillett to give us a few words of what you think. I know you just came, but what do you think? Someone that is listening, because others were asking some questions when Dorina was alone on this platform, and she did a great job with it. And then Lady Kate came in. So, one tip from you: what do you think that someone have been listening or just listening to you or will be listening later on or playing this, what do you think they
Mhm.
should take away from this particular discussion?
Okay, thank you for asking me for my opinion on that. So, from this discussion, if you are somebody out there that sits back saying it's not going to affect me, or, you know, this isn't my fight, I need you to listen and understand that it does affect us all. A lot of times, staying out of the fight doesn't mean you're not a part of it. Because, and I will give a perfect example of when the war started in different countries, right? When the war started in Ukraine to Russia, when the war started in Liberia, people in Sierra Leone thought it wasn't their fight. When the war started upstate, people in the capital thought it wasn't their fight, right? It's all our fights. We are going to stand to make decisions that don't just impact us, but will impact our generations. And one thing that's important for us all to remember is, if somebody hadn't decided to fight for independence, we as African countries, as African representatives, would not be where we are with our countries today. You're talking 52 years of independence, 60 years of independence, and in your mind, you must be wondering, like 60, 50, 40 years ago, all these countries were fighting for the same thing. And I bet you those people weren't thinking they would live long enough to see that independence. And though they didn't live long enough, but they have made the history books. Your vote may not make the history books. Your name may or may not make the history books. But the decision you take and the conscious effort you take to be a part of the process. By that, I mean, you're not just going to go and vote. You're going to take the word, you're going to understand it, and you're going to tell somebody else and empower them to go out there and also take an interest and vote. Because what we do today is not just for us, it's for our future generations. Looking in the United States, let's look back to Martin Luther King and others. Look at the fights. Look at Nelson Mandela. He went to jail for so many years. Did he ever believe that he would see that day when he'll be out and see independence and see freedom for Afrofights? No. And so these are some of the things we have to carry, take home. Tell yourself, let's don't be selfish here. Don't be selfish. Take an interest. If you don't know about politics, take a conscious and make a conscious effort to be aware of what is going on and how it can impact your community, your children, your future generations, our future generations, not just as individuals, as women, as whatever part of society you may find yourself in, but most importantly, how that decision is going to impact the future development of your country, both economically, developmentally, educationally, and from a healthcare aspect. These are some of the key things. These are what are like the building blocks and foundations of multiple great nations today. The other day, and I'll just leave this here, I saw 52 years of independence for the United Arab States, right? And somebody made a video where they were celebrating the leader who had the insight to not just be a leader, but a leader that decided to build all these buildings that today provide employment to that community, that country. It has become one of the number one international tourist spots. It has also become a place that, based on the tourism and the level of tourism in United Arab, a lot of employment for that community. They have maintained their culture. They have rules and regulations that keep foreigners out. They are celebrating 52 years, and it was 52 years of having a leader that chose to develop that society. And so when we are going to the polls, when we're thinking about the polls, no matter where you are, no matter which country you're in, this is the Liberian view. It could be in Sierra Leone, it could be Nigeria. Nigeria just had their elections, and the next 4 or 5 years are going to determine who they chose based on the output. Sierra Leone voted 4 or 5 years ago, and we're seeing a lot of development, a lot of progress in healthcare and education and development. But what more do you want to see? These are the questions you ask yourself. Is this the right candidate moving forward? Give them a measuring point, but most importantly, don't sit back and do nothing. Be an informed citizen of the country you're going to vote in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So at least you know today that you're not only voting for yourself, but you're voting for a future generations to come. And whatever you do today will impact you, your children yet to come. Thank you so much. I think, Gilead, before we ask Dorina to come on, I think you have a program coming on. You are.
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. So the program is being hosted by the Sierra Leone Association of Artists and Musicians, something that was started because generations before me, who started singing as a gospel singer, laid a foundation. They fought a fight that has now impacted us, today's singers, today's artists, today's talent, whereby we have governments that actually embrace and empower the entertainment industry. And entertainment, in this case, we're not just talking about singing and movies. So the Slam Awards is a Lifetime Achievement Award. It honors the legends. So we have a lifetime honorary section that actually honors those who have done things in the past, those who made the way for us to come out and say, yes, I'm a Sierra Leone gospel minister. I can stand on a global platform. I know my fellow artists. And then we have the President's Choice section, whereby, because of what we've been doing all these years, the international community has come in. They want to be a part of what we do. There's more partnership, collaborations, not just with the international community, but amongst talent globally in the diaspora and within our countries, our individual countries. And so the Slam Awards celebrates Sierra Leone talent.
And it's going to be June.
That has impacted us over the years. And this takes place on Friday, June the 2nd at the Hampton Conference Center. It starts at 9 o'clock, 9:30 at the latest. We'll be starting. Dinner will be served by 10. But we plan to give you a very top of the line event whereby we're able to showcase our artistic talents through book writers, fine artists, fashion brands, our alumni. We have created a platform where there is competition to the point where it increases the quality of work of any Sierra Leonean out there. We want them to be able to be competitive on a global platform. And when people hear it, they think it's just about music. It's not. We have nominees. We have an international foreign movie category. And we have nominations that have come in from Nigeria, Cameroon, and Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, so many countries, but everybody's paying attention. We are growing. We're open to collaboration as a country and as an industry. So we do look forward to seeing you on Friday, June the 2nd, at the Hampton Conference Center, and that is located in Capitol Heights, Maryland. So if you're out of state, it's in Maryland. And we look forward to seeing you. Our website is www.slaam.org. All information is there. Voting is about to start today, actually. And go on there and see the amazing things our artistic people are doing. We have a category for humanitarians. So basically, we're empowering people who help. We have a category for best sportsmen and best sportswomen, people who have gone to the Olympics, people who are like the best, like Francis Tiafoe, the young gentleman who made a scholar this year in tennis. All these people are going to be there, and they're going to be honored. They're going to be recognized by their own. I think that's a great accomplishment for us out in the diaspora to seek out what other people are doing and say thank you for doing it.
Okay, thank you so much, Jella, for that. These are all empowered women on this platform. If we sit here for them to tell you everything they're doing, I don't think we're going to leave from here. They are so engaged, involved, and know a lot. And they've rendered their time to you to tell you the importance of the role and impact of women in electoral processes. So, having said that, I will turn it over to our first or last speaker at the end, Dorina White, to tell us what you think you can take away from this discussion. Whether you're watching now or whether you're going to you're going to tune in later on. But we just want to let you know from Dorina's perspective and from the overall discussion, what are the takeaways from this particular discussion? What can you implement now? What can you learn from? What are you needed to go to school? So, Dorina, the floor is yours.
Well, Lucy, thank you for letting me have the last word here today. And I just want to say, I don't think I need to add to anything that
Yeah.
either of the two or the guests said. They covered everything very amply. And so I would be redundant if I were to start speaking again on what they said. What I can say to sum up everything in a certain sense is to say, number one, and I was thinking this as I was listening to the other two guests, is that um, as Africans in on the African continent and as Africans in the diaspora who are immigrants to other countries, you do not know the power that you have. We as African Americans here in the United States, we are limited in our scope in a lot of ways. We are not spread around the world with our families that have family members in London or in Brazil or in Australia. You have your foot in many places around the world, and you have a different exposure and experience that is second to none. And I strongly urge you to reach out and keep in contact with your family members around the world to find out what's happening globally, because that also impacts you where you live. I also want to say that in summing up everything, there are people who make things happen. There are people who watch things happen. And there are people who wonder what happened. You do not want to be one of those people who wonder what happened because you were not involved in the process. You didn't vote. You didn't share your voice. You didn't share your thoughts, your ideas, your concepts to actually impact the final election process or any of the political aspects that are going on in the places that you live in. You have a voice. So I would say, to sum it up, to be successful, you want to be amongst the people who make things happen. And you can make that happen by being a mentor, finding a mentor, getting involved, finding a person who knows what's going on that will be able to fill you in. But then you need to use the gift of discernment to make your own decision in terms of who you will vote for, why you vote for them, and why it's important that that person or that entity represents you. I say once again, use your God-given talents. Think carefully, because there are people who are watching you. And who are they? Your family members, your children, They watch you as you go to the polls. They watch you as you have those conversations about who to vote for and who not to vote for. They listen to you and you say, hey, we don't have water in our village. What are we going to do? Well, someone who goes out there to make things happen finds a way to get to the right person to get things done. Be one of the people who makes things happen.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dorina, for that. Be one of those who makes things happen. Don't be a wanderer. Be a participant and be informed. Always want to be informed. Be someone that want to be informed. I want to know, and not only know but to participate and vote right, like Dorina and Lady Kate and Gilles stated. And I think Dorina stated it rightly also. Every one of you, look at what the person stand for. What are they going to offer you? What are you lacking in your community? So as you listen and maybe view our podcast later on, we are hoping that this particular discussion have informed you to know that you have to vote right. You have to be engaged. As a woman, you have a very important, significant role to play. You are the mother of the home, the father of the president. You have a lot of role to play. So do not just sit there and think that you're not sufficient. You're sufficient within yourself. Make sure that you are engaged. If you don't know, find resources, and we will make some resources available on the Librarian View website. Today is the 22nd episode of the Librarian View, this discuss, and it should have been aired on in the month of April, but due to some technical difficulties, it was not aired. So I want to take this time to say, I always say before I close, that you may have millions, but if you don't have good friends that are with you, you have nothing. And I can say every day, I am so rich because I have so much good friends. And when I call upon them, they're always there. So I'm grateful, ladies. Always know that you're part of this team. And as we move ahead, you're always part of this history. Thank you so much. Our next episode will be June 25th. It's always on the Sunday. We say thank you for your time, Lady Kid and Dorina and Gidde. Lady Kid drove from way Virginia, wherever she is. She was at that time and she was here. Dorina, everyone just took off their time to be here. I appreciate you all so, so much. I am a millionaire in my own right. Thank you all. Thank you for our viewers and those that will watch. You have any questions, we're always here. Thank you, and you all have a blessed evening.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Let me see. If